I graduated in '61 from UNM. We had probably about 8% of the student body was Chicano, you know. And the atmosphere was not very friendly to us. We used to have a celebration called Fiesta. And it was basically a cowboy celebration. They would invite singers like Buck Owens and Lefty Frizzell and all like that, you know. And the rule was that during Fiesta week, you had to wear cowboy clothes. Well, I was from South Broadway, man. I wasn't about to don shit-kicker clothes, you know. I mean, so what happened, if you didn't wear cowboy clothes, they would arrest you and put you in a kangaroo court, you know. And the verdict was, you know, guilty or guilty as hell, you know. And then they would put you in, detain you in this jail for about a half an hour, you know, stuff like that. One day I was walking down the street wearing my khakis, you know, just tooling along, and I had my dark glasses on, and up pulls this car full of frat boys and jocks. And one of them got out. He was the shot putter for the track team. He was 250 pounds. At that time, I weighed about 135, you know. So he says, "Are you one of them Pachucos?" And I says, "You talking to me?" You know. So anyway, thankfully his friends pulled him off. They were all drunk, you know. Yeah, pulled him off, and I wasn't beat up at that time. But that was the kind of atmosphere that we used to encounter at the university. I did not belong to any fraternities or anything like that. I worked in the post office in order to make my way through school. As a senior, I married the sweetheart of Guachupangue, which is a suburb of Española, you know, Genara. And no, I grew up in South Broadway area where it was multi-ethnic. We had African Americans, we had American Indians, we had Chicanos, we had Mexicanos from Mexico, we had Anglos. And the one thing we all had in common, we were all poor. Or, you know, some of us might have been working class, but working class or below. But that was a very important experience for me because it gave me a sense of class consciousness. So when I graduated from UNM in '61, I went off to graduate school and I went to the University of Chicago, Southside Chicago, black ghetto. And the University of Chicago was a little white island and surrounded by this black ghetto. And I had a kind of a cultural crisis because I had grown up with blacks. I used to sing in a rhythm and blues group. You know, yo era negro, you know. And so, but in Chicago, it was, this is 1961, very racist. It was segregated like that. And but things were happening. I went to visit the Black Muslim temple, you know, and I heard what they had to say. And then I started ruminating on who I was, como Mexicano, you know. And during the summer, I used to come back to Albuquerque, and I met Reyes Lopez Tijerina in 1963, and I became a member of his group, La Alianza Federal de Mercedes. And he was this crazy wild guy, very handsome. He had these flashing green eyes and black hair and kind of pale skin. Estaba hablando un chorro de cosas, no sé qué tanto, and about the land we had lost and everything like that. My grandma had told me about all the land we lost, you know, but then here was this man, he had done all this research and everything, and he was going to get our land back. And my grandma told me to go visit this man and join him. Corre, habla con este hombre. Tijerino, used to call him, his name's Tijerina, but she thought it was Tijerino, And so I joined the Alianza. I was never very active in it, but I was always very supportive of Reyes and his cause. So anyway, things were happening in the black community. The students at Howard University were organizing Howard to go from a black bourgeois university into a university that really represented the people. And I says, that's what we got to do. Es lo que tenemos que hacer nosotros, back home. So I took a year job at University of California, Riverside, and I got involved with the Chicano community there. I got involved with the grape strike. And but everybody in California, they're all from Mexico, they're all. And I said, well, no, this is not us, I mean, I didn't know anybody from Mexico except there's a couple of guys that grew up in the South Broadway area, but we were Nuevo Mexicanos, So I decided to come home. And I says, I want to use the university as a forum to do something for people. So in 1968, I started the college enrichment program. But it was not an ethnic studies program. It was a program to recruit low-income students. So that's the class analysis, right? Low-income students. That first summer of '68, we had 45 students. There were 9 Indian students, American Indian students, 5 African American students, and 5 Anglos, and the rest were Chicanos, right? So anyway, it was primarily a Chicano program, but there was this kind of multi-ethnic and class consciousness. And anyway, I decided at the end of the period that I was going to go to Mexico. So I went to Mexico. This is the year after the Tlatelolco massacre, where a lot of people were massacred in the Plaza de Tlatelolco in Mexico City. And I went to Mexico City to the Institute for Advanced Study in Mathematics there. And I went to establecer mis raíces mexicanas, and to improve my Spanish. If I was going to get involved with the Chicano community, I needed to learn Spanish better. I grew up speaking jive, So anyway, Genara's family helped me in entering into the Spanish-speaking world. And anyway, so the college enrichment program started, and a lot of the students that had established UMAS in that same year in 1968 were hired in the college enrichment program. And those are the students that organized, as Juan and others, and Felipe have mentioned, organized Chicano studies and everything. And one thing that really touched my heart is that they Mexicanized the fiesta. Can you imagine Mexicanizing a fiesta? Because it was a shit kicker celebration, right? As I described to you. But the Chicano students took over the fiesta committee, and Jesus Juarez was the chair of the committee. Vato loco de Roswell, And so anyway, the Chicano students took it over, and I don't know, they invited Mongo Santa Maria, to play the music. They invited a lurista who actually wrote and he also wrote Yo Soy Joaquin, really.
Yeah.
Even though Corky Gonzalez gets credit for it. But anyway, it was a tremendous change, Can you imagine these students, the huevos that they had, the moxie, the guts, the foresight to be able to do that? I mean, this was, I think, the best generation of students that UNM ever had, and they really did a fantastic job. So anyway, I came back from Mexico, realizing que yo no era mexicano de ese tipo. I was a nuevo mexicano, manito, a Chicano. And by this time, Louis Bransford, the students had organized Chicano studies, and Louis Bransford was the first director, but he was half-time. So I came in 1970 as the first full-time director. And I stayed for 1 year, and then I hired Toby Duran. The students wanted Antonio Mondragon to be the head of Chicano studies, but Toby got one of the first degrees in Chicano studies in the whole country. He got it from San Jose State. So I thought that this guy, he's in the correct field, and we ought to bring him here. So we brought Toby here, and he became a graduate assistant in American Studies, ultimately got his doctorate in American Studies. But over the time, Chicano Studies was split up. Antonio Mondragon took Chicano Studies over the student services portion, and that became El Centro de la Raza, right? Yeah, and then Toby became head of the Chicano Studies academic part. But he and I realized that what we really needed was a research institute, a meeting place for scholars to come together, create research, and from research then create curricula, courses that could be filtered out, farmed out to the departments, and establish a Chicano presence throughout the entire campus. And that was the Southwest Hispanic Research Institute. And it never has achieved the funding that I think it should get, but it is an important intellectual basis for us to continue. So anyway, I take my hat off to all of you students. You've continued the struggle. I would like to present this study that Dr. Ezequiel Lopez and Ezequiel was one of the first Chicano students here, and he went out to Berkeley and got his master's degree in sociology from Berkeley, and decided he was going to become a steel worker. He went to Gary, Indiana to organize the steel workers, and he worked as a steel worker for 15 years. And thoroughgoing Marxist. And they shipped his job overseas, and so he went up and decided to get a doctorate, and he ended up being the head of a community college in South Chicago. So anyway, hay muchos mexicanos en Chicago. Yo no sabía eso, que había mexicanos en Chicago, pero sí hay. Anyway, he and I have written a work. This goes to show that even old viejitos like us can do something intellectually. And it's a article written on the occasion of the New Mexico Centennial. And we asked the question, should we be celebrating this, this occasion, or should we ignore it, or should we condemn it? So what it is the colonial analysis of New Mexico. New Mexico's known for all of this quaint, picturesque sort of literature and artwork and so on, golden carp and brujas and all of that. This is a hard look at New Mexico. We have statistics. We analyze New Mexico's history from a colonial perspective, and we present the statistics to show that we are in a colonial condition in New Mexico. And we present all the statistics to show that, and then we make an analysis at the end, and we call for unity among all working people. Again, that goes back to this unity of workers. In the back cover, we have, here's some Navajo uranium mine workers and some Chicano railroad workers. So it's somewhat of a Marxist analysis, and I'd like to present this to Dr. Vasquez, and put it in your library, and goes with our blessings. And I'm very happy that you're our director and have been able to achieve something that previous directors have not been able to do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to have actually Dr. Griego and Dr. Lopez in the spring present this work.